County School Board to order at this time. Mrs. Overby, would you do roll call for us, please?
Mr. Alker?
Here.
Ms. Flanagan?
Here.
Dr. DeVault?
Present.
Ms. Maddox?
Present.
Mr. Milner?
Here.
Dr. Stanbaugh? And Mr. Zager?
Present.
And thank you. At this time, we're going to elect a new school board chairman. The floor is now open for nominations for school board chairman at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Dr. DeVault to be chairman.
Okay. Dr. DeVault has been nominated as chairman and seconded. Are there any other nominations for chair? Okay, nominations are now closed. All those in favor of the motion to appoint Dr. DeVault as chairman of the board, please raise your right hand. Those opposed? That wouldn't be 100%. Congratulations, Dr. DeVault. The motion carries. I'm happy to congratulate you and pass this back.
Thank you, Dr. Coffman. Thank members of the board. Appreciate your confidence on maybe no one else's willingness to serve, whichever is the case. But I do appreciate this opportunity. Hopefully we can move forward for this coming school year. Again, the students of Henry County Public Schools are always at the foremost position in our mind. At this time, we'll move to item 2, election of, or item, I guess it's under the same item, election of vice chairman. The floor is now open for let's see, I guess we need to go through the agenda and all that first. Okay. Entertain a motion at this time to approve the agenda for this morning's meeting.
So moved. Second.
Those in support of this motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome visitors, members of the central office staff, other visitors that are here this morning. Appreciate you taking the time to be here as we go about the business of the educational process of the students of Henry County. This time I will call on Mr. Alford to do this morning's invocation, and we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance by Dr. Stanbaugh.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we ask you this morning to guide our thoughts and our minds as we do the business for the students of Henry County. Father, bless each board member, each presenter. Guide and direct us in all that we do and say. For we ask this in your precious name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now move to item 6, election of vice chairman for the 2014 school calendar year. The floor is now open for nominations for this position, vice chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Mr. Maddox for vice chairman.
Second.
Are there other nominations? If not, the nominations are closed. Those in favor of this motion signify by raising your right hand. Move to item 7, appointment of the clerk of the school board. Dr. Cotton, you have a recommendation for that?
Yes, sir. I'd like to appoint Melinda Overby again for the clerk of the board. She's doing a great job for us, and I'd like to continue to have her in that role.
Second.
Let's see. Well, I guess we need a motion. Was that?
I'll
was that you offered the motion. And now we have a second. Those in favor of this motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. So on the hot seat again. The next item for discussion this morning, the schedule of meetings for the coming calendar year. Again, Dr. Cotton, you have a recommendation for that.
our meeting schedule. I did keep in mind some of the issues we've had in the past. For example, that January meeting, the example of one that we don't want to do the first week. As you know, that's been a challenge in the past, and there were a couple other adjustments that were made. But we feel confident that this represents a similar calendar to what we've had previously. You'll also notice that we have some evening meetings mixed in as we've had in the past.
Is there a discussion concerning the meeting schedule for the 2014 calendar year? Note that it does provide for quarterly meeting in the evening. I guess, will we continue the procedure of having those evening meetings here rather than having them in school?
That would be my recommendation. That's what we've done this year, and it helps with the technology needs and those kinds of things. I think going into the schools was a great idea, but unfortunately the participation was not as we had hoped, and it was an awful lot of preparation with our technology department. They actually would start early in the day to make preparations, and it was often difficult to hear each of the board members during some of those meetings. So I would recommend continue to have them here. And what experience tells us is that people do show up for meetings when there's something they need to speak about. And I think it's going well this year. I would recommend doing the same next year.
Dr. Ball, I concur with Dr. Cotton. And we thought it was a real good idea. It was a good idea, but attendance just not prove to be such at the meetings in the outlying districts. And as stated, also having to move the technology around and other things, I wholeheartedly concur that we should adopt the schedule as presented. And I would like to offer a motion.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Those in favor of this motion as has been stated and recommended, signify by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Move to appointment of superintendent's designee. Again, Dr. Cotton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Each superintendent has to designate someone on staff to attend meetings in my absence, as well as signing forms or information from the Virginia Department of Ed. I recommend Mr. House serve in that role. He has done so for the last several years and has done a great job in that role, so I would recommend he continue to do that.
Any discussion? Those in favor of this motion has been stated, signify by raising your right hand. House, you're officially the superintendent's designee. The next item on the agenda is to recognize speakers from the floor. We have no speakers signed up for this morning's meeting, so we will move on to item 11, awards and recognition. First item under that number is recognition of Fish Acres Awards. Mr. House.
Morning, Dr. Ball, Commissioner Board. Each year, the Department of Education recognizes outstanding academic performance of Title I schools across the Commonwealth. The recognition is based on student achievement during the school years, the two prior years, in this case, 2011-12, 2012-13. A school receives the Distinguished Title I School Award for meeting the following criteria: achieving a mean score of at least the 60th percentile in both English and mathematics, and for being fully accredited for a minimum of 2 consecutive years, and for also meeting or exceeding annual measurable objectives for all students and for all subgroups for the current year and the previous year. It's my pleasure to present the Title I Distinguished School Award to Ms. Elizabeth Hussey, Principal of Ridge Acres Elementary School. And this is the 3rd consecutive year. And if you and Dr. Cotton will come down, we'll get a picture of.
Mr. House, why don't you join us for the picture?
time that you wrote a book on this.
Congratulations on behalf of the board, Ms. Hussey, and to your takers, staff, students, and community. I remember reading the article in the paper, and there are a limited number of schools in the state that get this recognition, and the Shakers makes Henry County look good, and we appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, what I also appreciate is our staff have provided workshops for teachers throughout the division, and that's powerful as well to share some great things that are working in your school, and I know you've been sharing ideas with your colleagues. We do appreciate that.
I believe in Ms. Strayer, Mr. House, you're going to present the message.
Yes.
Recognition.
Today, it's my pleasure to recognize Carla Lackey. Carla is a vibraphone player for Bassett High School Marching Band. She's selected to perform with the Army All-American Band on January 4th of this year. Carla is one of 125 students selected from across the country. Okay? She was nominated for this award by Mr. Trey Harris, the band director at Bassett High School. Carla has had to complete an online application and to submit multiple videos showcasing her performance abilities. She's, I think, Mr. Harris, correct me, the 11th Bassett student to participate in the All-American Bowl and be a participant there in this outstanding event. Carla has led the percussion front ensemble section for 3 years and has also served as percussion captain. She attends the Piedmont Governor School for Science and Technology and currently has a GPA of 4.1. Her future plans include attending George Mason University to pursue a double major in music education and communication. She aspires to be a front ensemble technician or director of a drum corps. Carla is the daughter of Carl and Orlinda Lackey, and it's my pleasure to present her with this certificate at this time. I'd like to give Carla an opportunity to say a few words about her experience, and then we'll get a picture with Dr. Cotton and Dr. Ball.
So the All-American Marching Band was probably one of the best experiences of my life. I met one of my first friends in a baggage claim, and I couldn't stop making friends from there. Everyone was just so genuine, and it was pretty cool when we got new instruments. I think they donated them to our less fortunate school, so we didn't get to keep those. But we did get a lot of T-shirts and free stuff, and also this polo that I'm wearing now. And just performing in front of 40,000 people, and especially being on television, was really interesting. New experience to me. It was so much fun. I totally recommend anyone who wants to try out. So, thank you guys for so much support from the Bassett High School band program. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that program.
Smile. One more. Thank you. I need you to get back to school.
Congratulations to you. The Bassett Band and its individual members continue to direct it, continue to bring honors to Henry County. We're very proud of for you and also for the band and our county.
And one last reminder, the U.S. Army is still hiring.
Next recognition of presentation, Scott, we planning to do this for some information concerning bullying prevention month.
Good Council, board members. The BSBA recognizes January as Bullying Prevention Month, and we have a proclamation that I'm going to read. It says, whereas school bullying has become an increasingly significant problem in the United States and Virginia, and whereas almost 30% of the youth in the United States are estimated to be involved in bullying each year, either as a bully or as a victim, and whereas an estimated 160,000 students in kindergarten through 12th grade miss school every day due to a fear of being bullied, and whereas bullying can take many forms, including verbal, physical, and most recently in cyberspace, and can happen in many places on and off school grounds, and whereas it is important for Virginia parents, students, teachers, and school administrators to be aware of bullying and to encourage discussion of the problem as a school community, and whereas the State School Board Association has developed a model policy on anti-bullying to encourage positive behaviors and to eliminate bullying behaviors. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the School Board of Henry County recognizes the month of January 2014 as Bullying Prevention Month, with the intent that the issue of bullying and its prevention be discussed in Henry County Public Schools and classrooms during that time.
A motion, I believe, to adopt this, is there a motion from the floor?
Second.
Motion has been moved and has been presented and seconded. Those in favor of this stated motion, signify by raising your right hand.
Mr. Chairman, I know that Dr. Cotton has emphasized this, and we had some teacher training. Is this complete or is this ongoing?
The training will be ongoing. We also are going to have some training of staff by the time next school year starts. I think it's also important to note that we recognize that bullying is a problem not just January, but all year long. We are working collaboratively with the Sheriff's Department earlier at the beginning of the school year. I think Sheriff Perry came in and showed that we have posters where students can text any anonymous issues that are going on into the school. We also have the availability for the students to meet with counselors and staff at any time, and our school resource officers are very proactive in the schools working with students about such issues.
And Mr. Zaire, just to add to that, all of our schools have bullying prevention programs in place in their schools, and we did a survey of all the things that are going on in our schools, and it's quite extensive. So that's something that just like Mr. Scott said, that's being addressed year round, not just in January.
Right. I mean, we've been very proactive on this, and this is something that I detest immensely. I mean, this is a problem nationwide. I mean, it's all over the place. And I know you've emphasized our administrators to be very tough on these issues. I appreciate that.
The hotline thing that was set up, is that functioning now?
It
Has there
is.
been much response on that?
There's been very little use. The students, right now, we've not seen any utilization of the program. We did have an administrator come in last week and ask for some additional posters.
Pardon me?
We had an administrator come in last week and ask for some additional posters, but right now the Sheriff's Department is not seeing much use of the program.
And that could mean a couple of things. It could mean the issues aren't there, or it could mean the students aren't utilizing that as a resource because it's a new resource. So we're not sure what the reason for that is, but we'll continue to talk about that opportunity for students to report.
Have we included our bus drivers in this? Because I noticed that things like this can and do happen on our buses. Have they been made aware? They being asked to be more observant and to report?
They've been asked. I've had a conversation with Tim Fulcher, but they are also going to be included in the training. They're going to be required to be included in the training before school starts next year.
All staff have to receive training in bullying prevention starting next year.
Yes.
So they will be included. But Mrs. Scott has also provided training on discipline and setting expectations and monitoring students on buses. I know you did that the past couple of years, if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms.
All
Scott.
right. Thank you.
Move to item 12, section A, under item 12, proposed revisions to school board policies. Ms. Linda.
Good morning. The proposed policy revisions reflect efforts to bring our policies into compliance with new or existing laws and regulations and have been revised for editorial reasons. A link was provided to the policies and the changes on board docs, and it included designation of changes by underlining new language and striking through deleted language. All revisions have been verified for legality by the Virginia School Boards Association or by legal counsel. They are proposed and presented for the board's review for first reading this meeting and will be presented for approval at the February 6th meeting. Hopefully all of you have had an opportunity to review them. Do you have any questions?
If no questions, then we would need a motion to adopt these proposed revisions on first reading, and final approval will be in February. Is there a motion to adopt on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions from Ms. Lambert? Not those in favor of this motion signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. Dr. Cotton, I believe you have section B there, strategic plan, mid-year update.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as we started last year, what we do is an update in the middle of the year on our strategic plan, Vision 2018, and then we do an annual update during the school board retreat. So I'm really excited to share with you our progress to date, and the reason that we do this is because we want to hold ourselves accountable for making progress toward our strategies, as well as our strategic objectives. As you'll note, I'll go through the first couple of slides just as a reminder. When you look at our vision and mission that are listed up here, it's always important to go back to both of those when you're looking at our strategic plan, because really if we feel that our students should be thinking critically, creatively, using technology to enhance learning and celebrating learning, then our decisions that we make should reflect that. And of course, you'll see our mission that's listed there. The next slide will remind you of our strategies. As you'll see here, we connect everything that we do back to these strategies. You will notice that when we talk about budget, we'll be talking about the strategies and the areas here. You'll notice that when we do highlights in my monthly report, we designate those as well, because the strategic plan should really be a living document, something that you keep in the forefront, not a document you put on the shelf. So we do refer to that quite often. For each of these strategies, we have action teams, and we have a chairperson for each of those action teams. And I would like to invite them to come forward and present to you the progress that's been made this year, and to also share with you plans for the remainder of this year. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with the high-quality instruction group led by Mr. House. What I encourage you to do is after they present their updates, feel free to ask questions after each of the strategies are presented. Feel free to ask those questions while they're fresh in your mind. And then, of course, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Mr. House, you can go and get started.
As you know, from our previous meetings, we've made a huge, as a division, a huge investment in our MAP program, and that was one of the things we wanted to accomplish here, getting that implemented for several reasons. One, to give us a true growth measure of how our students were performing, and also to give our teachers data that they could use as far as their teacher evaluation and to help drive their instruction. And so we embarked on that, and in June and July, we completed the first round of training for all of our teachers in grades K through 7. We had a very unique setup with our training, and the company was kind of skeptical at first, but then when they saw it, they've actually recommended it for other school divisions, because we brought all of our teachers in. We scheduled 3 different weeks throughout the summer, which gave teachers an option to go when they were available to go as far as vacations and playing around. So they all came and but the training focused specifically on how they should administer the math assessment. And so a lot of them were hung up, well, what do we do? How do we give it? How do we interpret it? We designed it that way on purpose, because we came back and did follow-up training in September and October. But in the meantime, the first assessment for the students took place beginning August the 6th through August the 30th. The follow-up training took place in September and October, and what teachers got to actually do, instead of looking at how to interpret the data and looking at a set of dummy data that was put together, they actually went through the second phase of training using their own live data. In other words, if I'm a kindergarten teacher and I'm trying to learn how to interpret this data, I got to interpret my students' data, their actual data. So you were working with real live data that you could use again to help drive drive instruction or instructional decisions that needed to be made. And I'll be sharing with you later on the day that fall assessment versus the winter assessment, so that we can see the growth that has taken place. But that was important, and as I said, the MAP, NWEA themselves have recommended that model to other the school divisions. The second thing we did is actually started back in the spring. We had a one all-day collaboration with Patrick Henry Community College, and to stress the importance that Dr. Cotton was there all day, as well as Dr. Godwin. And as a group from PH and Henry County Schools, we met to look at ways how we could continue to collaborate. And out of that came an exploration program for all of our 7th grade students. Every one of our 7th graders this year got the opportunity to go over on a Friday when Patrick Henry Community College staff members actually had different sessions set up for them, and they got to rotate through those, looking at different careers and career opportunities in those fields that are pathways that are available to our students at Patrick Henry Community College. We got an outstanding response in terms of student participation, and the faculty and staff at Patrick Henry Community College did an excellent job of exposing our students to those career pathways. So we're appreciative of that, and we're also working at this point on a follow-up phase of that as 8th graders. We also had one of the things, we've been focusing on math, and you'll hear a little bit more about that today. And part of that, we had 20 of our educators, both from at the secondary level, middle school level, and the elementary level, over 20 teachers to attend the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics Conference in Baltimore. They came back in turn and conducted share fairs at the different levels, elementary, middle, and high, for the teachers who weren't able to go, so that they could share the information that they had gained. We participated in this conference before, and we've always gotten very good information, very valuable information in terms of trying to improve math achievement among our students. So we're very, that's some of the things that we've completed. The things that we've got that are in progress. Another item that came out of that one-day collaboration with Patrick Henry Community College is the development of a model for administering the VPT. And that is the Virginia Placement Test that all students going to the community college are required to take before they're admitted to the community college program. And we always administer that to students who are taking dual enrollment classes. And so we talked with the people at Patrick Henry, and what we're working to model on is to actually test all of our sophomores. All of our sophomores will take the VPT, which will then make them all eligible to take courses at Patrick Henry Community College. But it will also give us information on those students that are performing below grade level, and it gives us 2 years rather than 1 year to work on remediating those students and making sure that when they decide to go into college, that they're prepared. So it's an early identification process for us to help those students that are not performing at grade level. And so we're working out the details to that, and we'll be hopefully be administering that VPT in January, the end of January this year. And we actually, the staff that spent the day working with Patrick Henry Community College, we actually took the VPT ourselves. And we're not going to tell you the scores, but we took the VPT. Okay, our curriculum work is continuous, it's ongoing. We're gearing in with English, language arts, and mathematics at the elementary level, and continue to work on that and developing our teaching and learning framework, which we hope to be able, once we finalize that, to be able to do a presentation for you on that sometime this year as well. The major component of this process has been we utilize our own staff, because as you can see, we don't have a very large department in terms of curriculum writing. So we have to rely on our teachers, which is good because then they have ownership in the curriculum. They have input ongoing with smaller committees, and then we use our collaboration sessions at grade level to then vet what has been put together by the small committee and then a larger group. In other words, we do a second grade collaboration. We've had a group of second grade teachers that have worked on a document, but then all second grade teachers will have an opportunity to comment or make suggestions or revisions to that. And that's ongoing. And we focus, we're focusing on those 4 C's, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and communication. We're also focusing our efforts on inquiry-based learning as well as project-based learning, similar to what you see at Warrior Tech, but are focusing on those learning styles and so forth. The last thing not the last thing we work on, the last thing I'm going to talk to you that we're working on is our Summer Math Institute. That's another thing that we completed last summer, but it's a work in progress. We're doing a follow-up from the 4-day institute that our math teachers went through last summer. Our middle school math teachers today are actually participating today in a follow-up session with the same math professionals that work within the summer. The middle school is going through that follow-up training today. Our high school math teachers will be going through it on the 23rd. So again, we don't just train people and then walk away from it. We have constant follow-up, and they'll be talking to them about different lessons and things that they've developed throughout the year. And again, focusing on inquiry-based learning as well as project-based learning. We'll also be working on developing a Summer Math Institute for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade math teachers to follow up with that. And that will be June 2nd through the 6th. Actually, June 2nd will be the last follow-up for the middle and high school teachers. That session will be on that Monday, and then 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade math teachers will participate in a 4-day math institute June 3rd through June 6th this summer. And again, we've got 6 nationally recognized math professors from across the country that are working with our teachers in this area. Questions?
Mr. House, VPD, is that the right?
VPT.
VPT. That test determines whether these students in Northern Patrick Henry, whether they have to take remediation math before they can take credit courses. Do we get any kind of feedback of how our students do?
Yeah, we do get information from Patrick Henry on that, and that's one of the reasons that we're focusing on trying to get that earlier in terms so that we have fewer students who are in need of remedial courses when they get to community college. So I don't recall the exact number of that, Dr. Vaught, but that's been an emphasis for us for the last couple of years, and that's one of the reasons that actually college has changed. The VPT is new because prior to that it was Compass, and we think this is a much better assessment, that this will be the first year that we've administered.
I'm glad to see that we're mentioning that to all students. I think I would hope we'd reach a time when kids graduate from high school, they don't have to take a remediation math course.
Right. And that's our goal. And the beauty of it is that we're working collaboratively with the community college to address those issues.
Other questions or comments?
In our efforts to make sure that Henry County Public Schools is being directed by high-quality 21st century professionals, there are a number of accomplishments that we've achieved since our board update to you in July of last year. We did work with the Virginia Association of School Superintendents to complete a survey of Henry County Public Schools salaries and salary practices. That included a comprehensive amount of information. It did include pulling together data and feedback. We did survey all of our employees to request feedback from them about how they feel that we're doing with our salary practices, with our salaries and so forth. We did pull data and provide it to VAST with regards to all of our job categories, all of the salaries for every employee within the school division, and as well as meeting with them to provide them with information about our human resource practices and our payroll practices. And so they've now come back to us with a comprehensive report and recommendations of priorities with what we may do going forward. So we're glad that we've completed that, and we'll talk about the progress on moving forward from there. We did develop an online exit survey to better understand the factors that are driving turnover and to help us improve our retention efforts. We've had an exit survey, just a paper exit survey, for a number of years that we've used. Unfortunately, we have very low participation in completing those surveys and returning them to us. We would like to be able to try to get better feedback to help us with our turnover and our retention efforts. So we're hoping that by adding a confidential online survey that they can more easily participate in, that they will be more likely to participate and share information with us. We do understand that not everyone has access to the internet, so we will attempt to provide these prior to an employee actually leaving, for those who are voluntarily leaving, to give them time to complete them at school. If not, we will provide them a paper format if they'd like to do that, but trying to obtain more information to help us with our recruiting efforts. We did implement an online teacher performance evaluation through PD 360. For those of you who have already been serving on the board, you know that we did implement a teacher performance evaluation system last year. It's a comprehensive evaluation system that follows the guidelines presented by the Virginia Department of Education. What we did this year was to try to take that online. We've been using an online professional development tool called PD 360. And it does provide a number of professional development opportunities, videos that can be assigned by principals and so forth. So by adding templates for all of our forms for the evaluation system to PD 360, as of this year, all of the principals are conducting the evaluations online electronically, and they are stored there. So they're there where all of the teachers can go and see all of the information. And they have access to them as well as the principals, so they are actually conducting their formal observations, interim reviews, observations, and performance improvement plans through PD 360. And then as there are areas that need strengthening or need improvement, they're also able to assign professional development opportunities at the same time through PD 360. And we also implemented the 2% salary increase, which became effective January 1st. In progress, now that we have the salary study recommendations, it is a fairly comprehensive report, so we're in the process of beginning to go through that report to be able to prioritize what those recommendations are, recommend those to the board, and see what we'll be able to do moving forward, and what priority we'll be able to make any changes that we can attack there. We are developing training in teacher performance evaluation and management to be conducted with all principals. That training will actually begin in the middle of next week. As I mentioned, we did implement the teacher performance evaluation system last year, so this is the second year it's being used, but it is fairly comprehensive. Principals are still learning how to best use and harness that tool, and so the training will really be to focus on reinforcing how that evaluation system should work and how to make sure that they are providing good feedback to their teachers, helping them in areas where they need to improve or strengthening areas where they're already strong, and helping them with how to handle non-renewals as well as dismissals when those become necessary. The school system overall is launching a climate survey to identify professional development needs, or a climate survey to see how we're doing across the board, but we will include in that identification of professional development needs of all staff so that we can get more feedback on what they feel that they do need and what we're doing well with them and what we're not providing to them in terms of professional development and training. And as you know from previous meetings, we also have been expanding our recruiting efforts to strengthen and increase diversity within Henry County Public Schools workforce. Are there any questions regarding our efforts concerning high-quality professionals?
I just want to point out to the board that we are still planning to meet with VAST, the folks that did the evaluation for us, to go over the report. As Mrs. Landon said, it's fairly comprehensive, and then from there we need to determine recommendations needs and our priorities and how we're going to address those. So what we're planning to do is come back to the board and present those findings at another meeting. So I just wanted you to know that's coming. We're still going through the information that we've received, but we'll need to bring that back to the board because, as you know, it will need to be a part of our budget planning process.
It's very detailed, so we need to.
Probably take myself a little bit when I ask questions about recertification and renewal and so forth. But as I listen to Mr. House, now you talk about lots of these sessions that teachers are attending, required to attend. Certainly, they're all geared to make them more professional and help them do a better job. Do they get any kind of credit towards recertification or certificate renewal for these?
They do. They do. Almost all of the professional development workshops that they attend do provide them with professional development points. And depending on, they can accumulate a certain number of points depending on whether or not they have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. If they have a master's degree, then the entire 180 renewal points can actually come from professional development. If they have a bachelor's degree, then they can use 90 points in professional development, but they are still required to take at least one 3-hour college credit course towards in their content area towards renewal every 5 years.
I suspect that a lot of these workshops and so forth they attend are more beneficial to the college course they might take.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can a summary of the climate survey and exit interview be provided to the board periodically?
Sure, we can do that. This will be the first year that we're implementing the climate survey and all of those results will certainly be shared. The exit surveys, the problem with those is they happen throughout the year intermittently. So, but certainly we can look at pulling some themes out from there. The unfortunate thing that happens with exit surveys is the folks who usually complete them are not very happy, and as a result, they're inspired to complete a survey. But what we'd like to encourage is for all staff to do that, because we have staff who are retiring, who are transferring for all sorts of reasons, and we want to get some good feedback from them on how we can improve. So I would think that probably we'll pull some themes together at some point. That'd probably be a good thing to do annually.
We probably won't receive a lot of feedback until the latter part of the summer.
We'll be glad to share themes, but you'll definitely get all the results of the climate survey.
Other questions? Thank you.
Okay, good morning. Our Division Safety Committee with Safe and Orderly Schools have been, we're real pleased to bring some accomplishments to you this morning. And I've got some show and tell items, if you will, so I want to be able to share some things as we talk about it. But one of the first items on there is we worked with the Sheriff's Office and the Public Safety in coordinating, updating our emergency floor plans. And so I'll kind of show you what one looks like. Each school has a copy of this now in their emergency mailbox. And this allows them, in the event of an incident, gives some quick emergency information for local law enforcement, public safety, fire and rescue, notifying exits, any kind of major utilities that they would need to know, and of course you see the highlighted areas in the event of a tornado. That's where children are located for the event of a tornado that may hit the building. There's also working with Henry County. They are creating us a aerial view of each school. So once those are completed, they will be attached along with the floor plan for our emergency responders as well. So we're pretty excited that that information is available for them in the event that we would have an incident take place at our schools. We've also had our teacher emergency handbooks that were completed this year, and need some more hands, I guess. Each one of these handbooks were distributed out to the schools, and they're going to be in each classroom in a emergency to go bag. And it's just a quick access. So if you flip through there and kind of know what to do in the event of an incident, and they're all listed and color-coded. And this really helps a lot with new teachers entering the building or even substitutes when they're working in the building. It's just a quick access to know the steps to take in the event of an incident that may take place at the school. Also, Ms. Carmela Shively and Sherry Vestal just completed a formal threat assessment training for all administrators and counselors and psychologists that work throughout the buildings. And so that's in place for all the buildings, and they're currently assembling their teams in each building as well. Some in-progress items we've got as we continue our training. Obviously, tabletop drills is we want to continue those as we move forward with this spring as well. Again, the training piece of it is very critical to bring the awareness piece, and the more we train, the more we're ready with it. I heard one of the sheriff's officers make a comment that, and I thought it was a great analogy for it, was that if you get out of the shower every morning to draw, nobody has to tell you what steps to take. You just kind of automatically do that. So the more we train, the more you'll get familiar with these steps and be ready for it, and it'll just come automatically to you. Completing security safety checklist. The part of the governor's task force, this is one of the items that came out of the governor's task force, and we were real pleased to see that when he rolled those out, we had several of those items already on our strategic plan. And so we felt real comfortable where we were with that on it. And this particular security checklist involves a lot of community partners, law enforcement, and public safety, and requires us to go through every building, roughly 10 to 12 pages long, to fill out and submit back to the state by August of this year. A lot of these items that we're currently already doing a building security audit on a monthly basis on, and so a lot of the items on this list are already on our security checklist that we do too. So we're real pleased that a lot of that's aligning up. They also were merging the 3 safety teams into one for additional strength of our resources. When we first started this, we looked at it and we had a lot of different areas touching a piece of safety. So we aligned that from a division safety committee and broke out 2 subcommittees for student and personnel. Well, as we're moving forward, and as Dr. Cotton mentioned, a live document moving, is that we realized we have an opportunity to streamline these resources and create only one safety team that would cover all the bases. Continue, again, keep people from having to attend multiple meetings, but also make sure that we're covering all the bases for everyone as we move forward. So, are there any questions from the Safe and Orderly Schools?
I'm concerned about substitute teachers and the training that substitute teachers receive, threat assessment training, and so forth. Like, for example, I might be teaching at student A this week, and B next, and C, and so forth. And is all the information pretty much the same in all schools as to where, so I would know where to go find this information should something happen at the school and I'm substituting that? Or?
That's a great question, and that's been our big focus, is making as much consistency as possible. Again, as we continue doing our drills, and the sheriff's office involved, public safety involved, we make sure that we're noting any inconsistencies at those facilities so that we make sure we get that straight, and every building makes the same steps in that event. The teacher emergency handbook, all those are exactly the same. That's been distributed throughout the school. All the steps in our crisis manual are the same, and so you're right. That's our step moving forward. We feel like we've made a lot of steps forward on making that more consistent, but there's always room for improvement.
And Mr. Miller, Keith is partnered with HR to provide the orientation training for the substitutes. When we've had those training sessions, they've raised concerns about what do we do, what resources are available to us. We even had a discussion about keys. We can't lock the door if we don't have the keys. So all of these things that came from the substitute group and the principals has led us to make some significant changes for consistency purposes, because everybody wants to do the right thing for safety. When we do these lockdown drills and we find a door unlocked and there's a substitute in there that says, I'm sorry, I don't have a key, I didn't know what else to do, then that's how we learn about how we need to make some changes and adjustments to our practices so that we don't have those things happen.
One other thing, in watching TV, and perhaps I do too much of that, but notice a lot of incidents happen wherein someone blocked the door open. So is there constant checks done to make sure that this doesn't happen, or?
Yes, sir. There's actually multiple stages of that taking place. Part of our building security audit that's performed by an energy manager on a monthly basis, that's one of his items that he looks for. Plus, the more that happens, the more we bring that to the attention of an administrator, and we've seen a significant reduction in that taking place on it. Now, I don't want to tell you all of them, that there's not one blocked open today, but I feel real confident in telling you that it'd be very rare to find one these days blocked open.
Other questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
Good morning. To stay on the cutting edge of technology, we've added several things this year from 2013. The first thing is we moved our one-to-one iPad initiative to 6th grade. And according to the Department of Ed, in December when I talked to them, we're still the largest digital textbook initiative in the Commonwealth. We added additional laptop cart for each elementary school for instruction. We added laptops for our Warrior Tech Academy, a one-to-one in that area. We also completed local area networks inside the schools for both high schools, which meant replacing all of our switches and access points. We implemented the district server for media on demand, which means now that our teachers can actually do their lesson plans at home and pull the videos in that they're working on, the particular standards of learning that they're working on, or their units they're working on, have them ready for the next morning. And my happiest thing that we've done this year is move to School Messenger for our alert system, which we've used many times this week. It's very simple to use, and it seems to be a high technology, so we've really enjoyed that one. Some of the things that we're working on is BYOT at Bassett High School, with plans to expand this to Magna Vista next year. Each day we're adding more and more students to BYOT, and we're planning to help train our teachers on some of the instructional activities they can use with these devices. We're developing a new technology web page that will store all of our technology information in one place. And two of the things that are going to be on there, on that page, is the SAMR model, and I'm going to show and tell. And this is just a model of evaluation which aims to enable a transformation of teachers' higher level thinking with their students on how to create things and how to use technology to move that transformation. For instance, substitution, a student may just print a test off of the computer and take it, but on the higher level, redefinition, they will use their information to create a book, or they'll use their information to create a project such as a video or something. So we're just transforming how we want to evaluate the instructional technology. And the exabyte challenge, if you know what a byte is, it's a little piece of information. The exabyte is one of the highest levels of this information. It's going to begin soon, and we're going to challenge our teachers to go along with this SAMR model and show us some good ways that they're getting their students for higher level transforming technology, how they're going to create this. And at the end of each challenge, the challenge is going to last several weeks. At the end of each challenge, the teachers can earn new equipment for their rooms. So they may get an Apple TV, an iPad, high-definition TV for their room that they can use with their students, so they will be able to earn new hardware. We're going to continue our LAN upgrades in the middle schools and some elementary schools, and this LAN upgrade is necessary because our technology has been in place with our network for 18 years. So it's getting old and it's getting worn out like many of us. So it's necessary to begin some upgrades. So we're going to start with the middle school soon. Continuing to add hardware to our schools. We're going to continue to add additional carts of laptops, iPads, and other instructional hardware to support all of these other things that you've heard about this morning. So that's what's in progress. We couldn't possibly list everything that we're doing in progress on here, but those are the four main things. Do you have any questions? for technology?
I hate to say I don't know enough to ask intelligent questions. But I appreciate the commitment that this school division has made toward technology and certainly your efforts in bringing that about. I think, I hate to use all the cliches, but certainly we're ahead of the curve statewide in this issue. Appreciate it.
We are, and we're planning another National Visit Day sometime in March. Every time Dr. Patton and I present, we have many school divisions that come up and say, can we come to your school division? And it takes a lot of time, so we're going to set aside a day that we can invite nationally and local and state divisions to come visit us. So I'll let you know about that.
And I'd also like to share with the board that all the great things that are going on with technology also poses a challenge for us in order to fund these technologies, because we have iPads that are 4 years
4 years old.
And we don't know what the useful life for an iPad really is. And we're kind of charting new territory there. So we need to talk about how do we replace the technology, and that's where we need to get into some discussions about leasing versus purchasing. And when you look at leasing, that's ongoing costs versus one-time costs. So we need to get into some conversations about that, but we also need to look at savings that we're seeing based on using more digital resources rather than paper, for example. So that's a discussion we've been having internally, and we'll be glad to bring you all to that discussion here soon. But in order to maintain these great practices, we need to talk about how we're going to continue to fund.
Other comments, questions? Thank you.
Good morning. Looking at effective and efficient resource management, we're continuing to use Google Docs, smartboards, iPads, and technology in our classroom to help reduce our paper consumption. We've released the first issue of our newsletter, Green News, highlighting energy conservation achievements and our successes in the schools. We continue to monitor the idle time and the fuel usage on our buses for efficiency. Recently, in the past couple of months, we've completed UPS training, the activity fund software in the schools, and fraud training for administrators and bookkeepers. Each year, we started about 3 years ago, we train the support groups, the president and the treasurer, concerning effective and efficient resource management. We implemented a pilot recycling program at Rich Acres Elementary School. We completed capital improvement projects such as Rich Acres Elementary lighting upgrade, and based on the data we've received so far, we're saving approximately 4,200 kilowatt hours a month for $440 in savings. The first phase of the Bassett High School HVAC and lighting upgrade has been completed, but at this point we don't have enough data to calculate the savings that we've received from that project. We eliminated a bus route for continued efficiency. What we have in progress, we're continuing to train and educate the staff and students in energy conservation and behavioral changes. We're planning on rolling out the recycling program to additional locations, update the web-based program to monitor monthly utility bills, and convert canopy lights in the schools as they fail from a high wattage bulb to an energy efficient bulb for energy savings. Any questions?
It's just amazing the things that you do just to save, just tweak here and tweak there, that saves a ton of money in energy costs. It's just amazing. We appreciate it.
One other item we are looking at is copiers, to get uniform copiers throughout the school, and the possibility of networking them and maybe getting rid of some of the individual standalone printers. There'll be savings there on the cartridges also.
The great thing about what Terry has said is every dollar saved here can be recycled back into instruction, teacher salaries, and instructional updates.
That technology we use.
Technology. Okay, other questions, comments?
I know this is perhaps beyond the scope of what the school schools can do, but I'm continually appalled each afternoon when I pass a school to see cars lined up for a quarter of a mile waiting to pick up children. Is there any educational process perhaps we could engage in as to try to let people know the disadvantages of this and how we're providing transportation and try to encourage them to use our transportation more? It's just, I just shake my head when I pass by and I see this. Is there anything that can be done community-wise to try to encourage people to use public transportation more as far as sending out children to school?
Yeah, and that's a tough one, and to be honest with you, I was surprised as you are when I first arrived and I saw all of the parents lined up to collect their children. I was shocked to see the sheer numbers. So we always tell parents not to do that, especially at the start of school, so we get our bus schedules down. But I don't know how you encourage them not to do that, but we're certainly open to ideas.
And see, I don't know about other schools in England, but I've received questions from concerned citizens. Why are you running those half-empty buses up and down the road?
And that's a part of what Mrs. Lawson was just talking about, the efficiency. We're constantly looking at our bus routes and seeing if we can eliminate a bus route and so forth. And we raise those same questions about numbers, but it really comes down to distance and locations of students. And unfortunately, students don't travel in little packages where they all live in certain areas together that we can collect them all at one time. So, but I will tell you that we're constantly looking at efficiency with busing, because we don't want to run buses with 3 students or half the bus full. And then on the flip side, we get complaints when the buses are not even overfilled, but approaching capacity. So we hear it on both sides of that.
Perhaps a survey or something could be done, a good survey, as to why we choose to bring your child to school as opposed. Maybe some of the points brought out is something we could do something about.
We can look into it. I mean, does anyone else have any thoughts on that? I was surprised by the sheer number and what I really worry about is John Red in Collinsville, because you know that backs up traffic. But I don't know.
Drury Mason also has a problem where there's cars backed up all the way up and back up the road, on the side of the road, 220. Major.
I'm not sure what the reason for that is, other than obviously they're able to pick up because they're not at work. Otherwise, they would be on the bus. So I'm not sure really what the root cause of that is, but we can talk about collecting some of that information. Maybe the principals can give us some insight as to why that's happening.
Maybe our good friends at Marshall Wilson could do some articles that make people more aware of all of this and problems that it causes.
Paul, did you jot that down?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll provide the update for family and community engagement. As you know, we have a vacant position in that role at this time. Wanted to share with you a few accomplishments here. We did redesign our webpage to improve navigation and to provide updated information, slight changes on the webpage. We've also implemented what we call really a soft release of Your Voice Matters and Connect with Dr. Cotton, which some people have already located. There's a Your Voice Matters link on our webpage, and then if you go to my webpage, there's an opportunity for folks in the community, parents, students, to send an anonymous message, or they can identify themselves. In some cases, we've had emails where they'll ask for follow-up. They'll provide their information, and either I will follow up or a member of my staff will follow up. And that's really to create the two-way conversations back and forth. I will tell you, to date, I've received, probably less than 10 so far, but as more and more members of our community find that opportunity, they'll probably send some feedback through there. The other thing I wanted to make sure you were aware of is I've been very actively engaged in collaborating with the Harvest Foundation and various community organizations to really look at how we can better serve the youth in our community. One of the things that I realized when I arrived was we have so many great resources, but we're not all working as well together as we could. And this initiative is forcing really all of the community organizations to come together and try to see how we can streamline our processes and resources so that we're not duplicating efforts, and also so that we can look for gaps that we have in our resources for students. So that's going very well, and I'll certainly keep you posted on that progress. Some things that we're working on is the survey administration, which we're planning for January. We sure hope we're going to make it with the school climate survey, we're calling it, but it's really aligned to survey questions that focus around our strategies relating to our strategic plan. We're hoping to administer that to students in grades 5, 8, and 12, all parents, and all staff. So we will have some results from those surveys that we'll be sharing out probably at a meeting where we'll look for themes that come out through that. And obviously the individual school results will be shared with principals so they can use that information moving forward. Also, certainly we need to hire a coordinator for parent community engagement. You know that position's been vacant since October. I'm involved in the second round of interviews for that, so I hope that I'll be able to make a recommendation. My hope is by next month, so that we can have that position filled, and then I can go back to my other duties, because we've had to share the workload in this area, which everyone's gladly taken on that responsibility. We're also looking at developing a parent engagement toolkit for staff to use to increase parent engagement. You'll notice we use the word engagement quite a bit. It's different from involvement, and that's key, because being involved is very low level participation in the educational process. We want to take it to the engagement level, and eventually we want to get to the advocacy level, and that's a much higher level for parents to be very much invested in the educational process. So those are some things that we're working on in that area. Do you have any questions related to family and community engagement for me or somebody else that could answer it?
Did I read correctly in the paper that Mr. House is now going to be a member of the Harvest Foundation Board? So congratulations, Mr. House. So I'm glad to know that we'll have an inside track into all that money.
And Mrs. Gracie Agnew was on there prior, correct? So definitely it's good that we have representation on the board. Any other questions for the group? I appreciate, I know we took some time, but it's important, it's critical to the work that we're accomplishing here, and I hope that you're pleased with the progress that we're making on the plan.
Well, I think we appreciate the staff and Dr. Cotton for bringing all this information forward. I appreciate it, and I know the board appreciates too, the openness that exists in your administration back to the board. Kind of makes us aware and keeps us on track of what's actually going on and where the priorities are and the progress we're making with the priorities. Okay, we'll move to item 13, the consent agenda consisting of minutes from the last meeting, approval of bills for payment, and approval of any overnight and out-of-state field trip requests. Are there any parts of that section of the agenda that members would like to discuss or question individually? I think you have all of that information in your agenda. If not, I'll ask for a motion for approval of the consent agenda as it was presented.
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor of this stated motion signify by raising your right hand. Move to item 14, section A, adoption of code of conduct for school board members. Cotton, you have some information.
Yes, this is something that board members have signed annually that define the code of conduct. And copy of that, if the board approves, encourage, obviously, to sign at this meeting, if you'd like to send that on down the line.
Okay, I think that one of the reasons our board, I think, has been successful is that we have annually subscribed to this code of conduct for members. It does address our individual commitment as board members to the youth here and staff here in Henry County. And I would, as I sign this, it's identical to what we've signed before, but I think it's important that we do it each year to remind ourselves of our commitment to the position that we have and the professionalism that we use in addressing this position. I will sign this and pass it down. So we need a motion to adopt this.
So moved.
Second. Is there a second? Those in favor of this stated motion, please signify by raising your right hand and also by signing the form as it comes down. We all get a copy of this stuff. Can we get a copy? We can.
You can add that to the weekend one.
Post that after mirror each morning to look at. If you will recall, as a part of this overall process, that Dr. Cotton annually makes a pledge to the board on his responsibilities and his approach to his position, which I think also is a significant part of whatever success that this board and this system might have. You see that everyone gets a copy of it. We'll move to section B under action agenda, appointment of a school board member to serve as Piedmont Governor School for Mathematics. To serve on the Piedmont Governor School for Mathematics, Science, and Technology and Governing Board. Mr. Miller has had that position, I believe, for the last 3 years, Mr. Miller, is that right? And your term is expiring?
Yes.
So we need appointed a person to fulfill that position.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Mr. Sayers.
And I'd like to second that.
Okay.
I think his background in education and also his experience with college and other courses has been invaluable.
Okay. Are there other nominations for that position? If not, those in favor of this nomination, signify by raising your right hand. Let's see, do we need an alternate for that position also? Is there a nomination for alternate to that position in case Mr. Sayer is unable to fulfill his responsibilities? I'm convinced that he will be.
I would like to nominate Mr. Sheriff Flanagan to be the alternate.
Second.
Other nominations? If not, those in support of this motion, signify by raising your right hand. Okay. Mr. Zayer and Ms. Flanagan, we were on track for those two positions. Move to item C there, requested waiver for preschool, pre-Labor Day opening approval. Dr. Cotton, you have some information about an innovative program that you're proposing.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, thank you for this opportunity. I did share this with the board prior to this meeting to let you know that we were working on this. Just to give you some background, Henry County has qualified to start before Labor Day since, 2001-2 school year based on weather. And that's really calculated based on the average number of days missed due to inclement weather. And we've received that waiver in the past. During that time, we have developed a great collaborative relationship with the community college, Patrick Henry, as well as NCI. We've also worked well with teachers on establishing a calendar, which really works well for instructional purposes, where the first semester ends right before the winter break, and the second semester starts when they return. And that we've been doing that for the past 2 years, and that's been very, very well received. We're at a crossroads at this point where we would not qualify under weather-related because we've had mild winters for the past several years, and as a result, we're not going to make the required average number of days missed. But we're also looking at this as an opportunity where we can look at an innovative program. In order to do that, we have to apply for a waiver to get approved to start before Labor Day to implement this innovative program. So really, it's a perfect storm of all of these things coming together, no pun intended, but we are looking at a pipeline program. We're partnering with Martinsville City because they're interested in participating in this program with us as well. We're calling it the Henry County Martinsville STEM Pipeline Initiative. And just to give you an overview of that, and of course we posted the actual waiver that I plan to submit to the state with board approval. I would need to get board approval, and Dr. Duvall would need to sign off on this before I submit to the state. But just to give you some general highlights, we're trying to create this pipeline with all these great programs that we have at this high school level, and all these opportunities in our community for high-demand jobs in advanced manufacturing, engineering, information technology, and healthcare. We need to start much earlier. We don't wait till high school to start getting students excited about these career opportunities. So we plan to start in second grade, where we actually want to have all second grade students participate in the STEM Mobile Learning Lab, which comes out of the Institute for Advanced Learning out of Danville. It's a free resource. The students participate in the mobile learning lab, and then there's a parent component that occurs that evening. All second grade students with this proposal participate in that. Then all fifth grade students would participate in at least 2 STEM labs throughout the school year, where they would travel over to the Piedmont Governor's School, which will be housed in the new NCI building starting next school year. And the teachers at the Governor's School are going to provide STEM labs, inquiry-based learning, and helping students learn about careers in the area of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and to get them excited about the skills required for that, and also help them consider career pathways in those areas. And then all sixth grade students will participate in that same thing. So we're going to have fifth and sixth grade students going to the Piedmont Governor's School for these STEM labs. And it's a great partnership because you know that they don't have students in the afternoon. And of course, they've been doing planning and those kinds of things, but they're excited about the opportunity to work with our students in this new initiative. Seventh grade students, we're going to continue our college and career visits that you heard Mr. House talk about. That was very successful this year. We want to continue with that. That's a great partnership with Patrick Henry Community College. And then when students enter 8th grade, we want to expand that to where we have them involved in the SBO Henry program, as well as visiting Patrick Henry's Artisan Center, the local business community, maybe some businesses, as well as New College, to learn more about careers in STEM-related fields. Starting in grades 9 and 10, students can choose to opt into Warrior Tech Academy, which is a STEM-based academy program that emphasizes project-based learning, integrating courses, and one-to-one technology. We also have Project Lead the Way, which is STEM-focused as well. We have the AET program, which is offered through NCI with a partnership through Virginia State University that students can participate in. We also have CTE, Career Technical Education courses offered through Patrick Henry Community College. And I want to emphasize that we would not be able to offer some of these courses if we did not have that partnership with Patrick Henry Community College, because we don't have the instructors for some of these courses. Grades grades 11 and 12, you know, we have the ACE program where students can earn an associate's degree. We have the AET program, which I've already talked about, dual enrollment courses through Patrick Henry Community College. We're implementing the IT Academy through Patrick Henry Community College, which is another opportunity for students. And again, career and technical education courses. So I hope you're seeing that we're looking at a true pipeline, starting in elementary, creating all these opportunities for students. The ultimate goal being that when students graduate, they'll have either a certification or an associate's degree in a field where they can go right to college, post-secondary school, or they can go right to work in some cases with the certification. And we're really opening that discussion about post-secondary education. It's not just college or university. And you'll notice in the waiver, we talk about it could be vocational school, it could be trade school, it could be the military. There are all kinds of post-secondary opportunities. The biggest thing we want our students to have a plan. We don't want them to wait until they graduate from high school and then not have a plan. So a part of this is to develop a college and career plan. You know, we're required to do for 7th grade. We want to start it in elementary school to get our students thinking about college and career. You'll notice in the highlights that I've shared over the past couple of years that many of our elementary schools are talking about college and career already. And that's what we need. You can't wait until high school to start thinking about these things. And parents need to understand these great opportunities that are available in our community, jobs that can't be built in our community because there aren't employees out there with the skill set required. So this is not just a Henry County Martinsville Schools initiative. This is a whole community initiative in my mind. So with approval from the board, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. Like I said, it's unfortunate that we don't qualify for weather-related start after Labor Day, but again, this creates an opportunity for us to expand on something that we've already started and develop something that's truly innovative for our community and for our students. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank Dr. Cotton for working, and also the Pacific Martinsville School System for working on this right here. The last time I visited Magnificent Bassett, I was literally bombarded by employees, teachers worried that we weren't going to be able to keep our present calendar of starting pre-Labor Day. And I told them that the weather, we couldn't avoid that there, but we were working on a plan, and Dr. Cotton has presented his plan, and I'm very appreciative of it. The teachers helped plan this calendar. They picked it, and it's working. And I'll make a motion that we approve and apply for the waiver.
A second. Okay, other discussions, questions about this? I certainly agree with Mr. Zayer's comments. This addresses two things. Start early, and that is important, maybe more importantly, a long-term plan for youth beginning as early as the 2nd grade. Do you have any feedback as to how this might be perceived by?
Well, I will tell you that I have looked at waivers that have been approved in the past, and I've also reviewed waivers that have not been approved. The ones that have not been approved, it looks to me like it was presented as an add-on kind of a thing, which is not the case here. This is truly something that we are totally buying into, and it impacts all students at certain grade levels. So this, in my mind, this meets the definition of innovative because it's transformational, and it really pulls in all of the partners. Have actually asked for letters of support from NCI, Patrick Henry Community College, the Governor's School, and Economic Development. So we're really trying to send the message that we're all in. It's all of us working together. The key is that we have to start before Labor Day to make this work, and that's why you'll notice in the application it talks about why that's important, and really it's important for us to mirror the schedule of the colleges, because that way we have access to those resources. If we started after Labor Day, then that's a whole month of time that we can't access those resources on the front end, and then there's the time on the back end in June when we're not going to have access to resources. So And there's also additional cost involved if some schools have the pre-Labor Day calendar and some do not, because that's transportation costs that's involved. So I tried to present a rationale. The other thing that I hope you noticed in the application, we have specific goals and outcome and measures that we plan to monitor. And I've seen other waivers that are very general with those kinds of things. We were very specific. So I think that's going to work in our favor, I hope.
At the state level, who makes the decision?
The Virginia Board of Education will make the final decision. Dr. Patricia Wright, who's the Superintendent for Public Instruction, she will make a recommendation to the board. If we're fortunate, we'll go to the board in February, and I'll be there to present. Tammy Heath will join me there. If we're fortunate, Dr. Wright will ask the board to approve on the first reading. If not, then I might have to make 2 trips. But I've seen in the past she has asked for approval on the first reading, and that's gone through. We'll keep our fingers crossed, but that's the plan.
Okay, other comments, questions? If not, those in support of the stated motion to approve submitting this waiver request, please signify by raising your right hand. Those? Thank you, Dr. Cotton, for your work and staff's work on getting this together. Sure. Move to item D, approval of independent audit firm for 2014.
Request for proposal for the audit of the school activity funds and the support groups were sent out to 17 firms. 2 firms responded to the bid and 1 firm declined. The criteria included in the RFP were evaluated by a committee of 3 people, and based on our evaluation, Creedle Jones and Alga has been deemed the best fit for the school. It's recommended that Creedle Jones and Alga be retained to conduct an audit of Henry County Public School activity funds and support groups. And just as a reminder, a portion of this fee, we come back to the board every year to ask that the support groups, the portion that they pay towards the audit of their books.
Is this the same firm that's been doing this?
Yes, sir.
Same firm.
Same firm.
You feel good about what they're doing?
I do. They've given us some very good recommendations and changes that we've implemented since they've been here.
Is there a motion to approve this recommendation?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Questions from Ms. Lawson? If not, those in support of this motion as has been stated, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, Ms. Lawson. Section E, award of contract for A&E services, class 2, design, construction, and tech.
Yes, sir. Dr. DeVault, members of the school board, RRMM Architects of Roanoke currently holds an open-end contract with the Henry County School Division for A&E consultant services. And they provided us with a proposal for the design and construction administration of the second phase of Warrior Tech. And as you remember, they also designed and did the construction administration for the first phase as well. The proposal is in the amount of $51,830 to include design development, construction documents, bidding, and construction administration. It's recommended that a contract in the amount of $51,830 be awarded to RRMM Architects for this work at the second phase, for this work on the second phase of Warrior Tech, and this would come out of the current fiscal year's A&E fees budget.
And just for clarification, this is the second phase, but it's the final phase, correct?
That's correct. That's
What actually does this involve?
actually, this will involve adding on an additional lab area. If you remember, there's 2 labs when you walk into the entrance of Warrior Tech. This would involve adding an additional lab and then, of course, a couple of breakout areas as well.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I believe I asked the question back in spring when we approved the first phase, what the second phase would cost, a tentative preliminary indication. I believe, Dr. Cotton, correct me if I'm wrong, it was around $150,000.
That sounds right.
That's correct.
Right.
Yes, sir. That's the provided estimate at the time. Yes, sir.
Right. And this is going to be used one-time carryover funds from the last fiscal year.
That's our plan. Of course, we haven't brought that recommendation forward, but we will be bringing a recommendation related to the use of the carry forward money from last year. And my sense is that this will be a part of that recommendation.
The amount of carryover funds is anticipated to be over $700,000.
I believe it's 750. Summer, it's approximately 750,000. So more than likely, we'll be looking at roughly 150,000 of that for Phase 2 of Warrior Tech, and the remainder to be applied toward Bassett High School HVAC work that we've been putting in place that will be applied towards Phase 2 of that HVAC plan.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go ahead and approve the A&D $51,830 contract.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second regarding this issue. Any other questions specifically? Now, this pays for the design construction, our design construction plan. It doesn't commit us to that 150 until we see later that we're going to have that.
That's correct, Dr. Vaughn. Right, once the design is done, we'll send it out for bid, and then we'll receive the bids in for the actual construction.
And I also want to just say publicly to the board, remember that you did approve A&E services for Bassett High School, but even though the board approved, I communicated to all of you that I put that on hold for now, just because we are looking at potentially other opportunities for Bassett High School moving forward, and there are concerns about the size of the building and the number of students, whether or not we would be able to do the same thing at Bassett that we're doing at Maine Vista. So we're actually exploring potentially other locations and those kinds of things. So I want to just say publicly that, what was that, around 30,000 in that range?
Roughly, that's for the study.
Right. We haven't spent. Because as I've communicated to you, we're just holding off because I don't want to spend that money and then say, oh, we're going to use another location. You know, we don't want to waste that money. So we're putting that on hold until we can investigate a little bit further.
And I sincerely thank you for that, because the things you mentioned were part of my concerns, and I'm thankful that we are looking real good at it.
And board members have also stated that you really want to see proofs in the pudding with the program at Maine Vista. We've gotten great results anecdotally, and teachers have reported the students are surpassing expectations on their assessments that they've given to traditional students in the past. But as good stewards, I know that you want to know that it really is showing proof that students are achieving at a high level. So with that in mind, we may be looking at an implementation of Bassett, maybe not next year, but maybe the following year. So those are all discussions that we'll need to have.
And I also see by looking at the news, listening to the news, that some of our other neighboring school districts are considering the same type of situation.
They are. They've come to visit, and once you see it working, you feel like you have to do it. This is the right thing for students, and you know, it's a powerful model. But and I will tell you, as I told you before, I didn't think that we needed 2 new tech schools in Henry County, but the fact that our smallest high school filled the quota and had folks on the waiting list tells me that there is a demand for this type of learning environment, and I know Bassett would be able to easily fill 100 spots of incoming 9th graders as well. So, but we'll keep having those discussions.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve this recommendation. Motion and a second. No other discussion. Those in favor of this motion signify by raising your right hand. Mr. Scott, for the benefit maybe of our 2 new board members, you started this presentation by indicating we have an open contract with this design firm. Maybe explain exactly what an open contract is.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Vault. Typically, every 5 years, We will look for A&E consulting services, architects and engineering consulting services, and we're sent out an RFP. And so if firms responding, we gather an evaluation committee together and review all the responses that are brought in, and then based on a certain criteria, we'll choose a particular A&E group to work with. And the last time this was done, there was actually 2 firms chosen, Mosley Architects and then RRMM as well.
Thank you. We'll move to superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have some good news to report for the month of December. We have first item, mousetrap power cars. Most students find many physical science concepts challenging to comprehend. Ideas such as potential and kinetic energy, friction, inertia, momentum, and simple machines can all be difficult for elementary and middle school students, especially if they are taught without a real-world connection. Mr. Grandinetti decided that he would teach these concepts to his 8th grade technology class by having students construct mousetrap cars. Students built their cars using a basic design and then had free reign over the color scheme and the design elements as you see here. A new STEM program put to the test. Some teachers from Henry County are part of a national project that focuses on using modeling and analysis with STEM, where everything is inquiry-based. At Laurel Park Middle School, one of the teachers, Mrs. Coughlin, ordered ProWare and created a science lab activity for her students using plants. During the ProWare lab, students see the actual temperature of the soil appear on their laptop screens and watch as the temperature is graphed. Using measurement to help the community. Students in the 5th grade class at Sandville Elementary practice measurement skills while making pumpkin pies for local churches to serve with Thanksgiving dinners for the needy in our area. The students and their families baked approximately 40 pies. Mathematics Tree. Gail Cheney's math classes at Magna Vista combined SOL review with getting into the holiday spirit. Their classroom had a geometry. Did you get that? The students didn't say that slow enough. The students constructed and decorated various shapes they had learned during the semester as a review of the upcoming SOL assessment, and you see some students pictured here. Art walk at Mount Olivet. Mount Olivet itinerant teachers and Mrs. Maynor planned an art walk, book fair, ELL, and history night for students. Students participated in drawing, painting, simulated mummification to tie into the study of ancient Egypt and the book fair. Parents were able to purchase their child's artwork to support the art program. Reenactment of the first meeting of the Continental Congress. On a recent field trip to Monticello, Montpelier, and Ashland Highland, 5th grade students at John Red Smith participated in a reenactment of the first meeting of the Continental Congress. They look real serious there. Wishes granted at Monticello. Elementary students in the deaf and hard of hearing regional program were granted free tickets to tour Monticello through a scholarship from the Midford Angel Fund. Stanleytown Elementary applied for and was awarded a grant that included a private tour of the home and the grounds, the museum, and educational center for the students and their interpreters. 2 of the students' most fascinating sites were the Ice House and the Outdoor Privy, both places they enjoyed seeing, but would have wanted to personally experience it back in the 1800s. Bassett High School Band performs at John Red and Stanleytown Elementary Schools. Students at John Red Smith Elementary and Stanleytown Elementary enjoyed music performed by the Bassett High School Band led by Mr. Trey Harris. Students were encouraged to sing along as the band played some of their favorite holiday selections. Mr. Harris also discussed the various instrument families with students. Band members stood up to show examples of each instrument family, doing some early recruiting, I see. Mount Olivet participates in Girls on the Run. Mount Olivet teachers Dietrich Cassell, Kim Minter, and Roxanne Merritt coach the school's Girls on the Run team. The coaches, school faculty, and staff partnered with 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students and participated in a 5K at Martinsville Speedway in December. Campbell Court students learn about fire safety for the holidays. Remember, the Henry County Public Safety Team came to talk with students at Campbell Court about the need for fire safety, especially around the holidays. The firefighters provided demonstrations and showed videos that educated the students on how a safe house should look and what to do in case of a fire. Sparky the fire dog even made an appearance for younger students. I'm embarrassed to say that I had to play the part of Sparky the dog in my past, which hopefully there are no pictures. Fire safety. Sparky also visited Axton Elementary School to inform students and staff of fire safety and what to do in case of a fire. Students enjoyed a puppet show that was filled with catchy tunes to convey specific fire safety concepts. Important messages included not playing with matches and lighters, stay low to the exit if a building is on fire, stop, drop, and roll, which we all remember, if your clothing catches on fire, and be sure to check and change batteries and smoke detectors. Students learned about tornado safety. At Sandville Elementary, students in Mrs. Fisher's language arts class read an article on timeforkids.com about the tornadoes that hit Illinois and other states during November. After reading the article, students used various websites to create tornado safety posters that included information about safety kits, what to do before, during, and after a tornado, how to protect yourself if you're away from home during a tornado, as well as the difference between a watch and a warning. Posters were graded using a rubric and posted in various places in the building. Change War for Child Safety. Laurel Park Middle School Junior Beta Club recently sponsored a Change War among advising classes to collect money for the Coy White Memorial Fund. Students raised over $1,100 to purchase approximately 220 bicycle helmets, which were donated to the Salvation Army for Bikes for Tykes. Sandville faculty goes Christmas caroling. Sandville Elementary faculty and staff went Christmas caroling as part of their family and community initiative. They visited Brookshire Apartments, Saddle Ridge Mobile Home Park, the Barn Apartments, Stanleytown Rehab Facility, and several former members of the Sandville school family. FFA Community Service Project. The Laurel Park Middle School FFA chapter recently made blankets to donate to the Grace Network. The blankets were distributed to area families during the holiday season. Agri-science teachers Donna Kazor and Champ Hardy serve as chapter advisors. Beta Adopts Family. Adopting a Family at Christmas is an annual event project at Magna Vista for the Magna Vista Beta Club. Students shop with a family, but this year consisted of a mom, dad, and 3 children. The December beta meeting was spent wrapping the presents, as you see here. Area high school art on display at the Piedmont Arts Association. Piedmont Arts Youth Artist Gallery features work by Carlisle School and Magna Vista, Bassett, and Martinsville High Schools. Classes visited the galleries in December to see the new BBCX 365 poster series, which is part of the Old News exhibit. The students enjoyed seeing the artwork from fellow classmates. Students participate in 6-word project. Students in several English classes at Magna Vista creatively wrote 6-word stories to participate in the Piedmont Arts exhibit. Students were assigned to write a story using only 6 words about something that happened in the news or in the lives during the past 365 days. The story should have conflict, action, and resolution that give the sense of a complete story transpiring in a moment's reading. The exhibit at PAA contains entries from Melody Margrave's English 10 classes and Dorothy Carter's AP Language and Composition classes. Gingerbread houses. The preschool and kindergarten classes at Axton Elementary School hosted parents for a morning of full candies, frostings, and gingerbread. Parents were invited to help their child construct a gingerbread house using graham crackers, frosting, and lots of candies. Students were creative and used the building materials in multiple ways. Parents and students were happy to have the time to work together to create delicious decorations for their homes for the holidays. Culture Fest. The Axton Elementary ELL department recently hosted Culture Fest. Parents and students were able to travel to many countries to make crafts and sample authentic cuisine. In Japan, students constructed fans. In Italy, cannolis were sampled. And in Australia, students worked on a mural of Aboriginal-style art. Countries featured were Mexico, Germany, Japan, China, Peru, Honduras, Kenya, Panama, Italy, India, Spain, Guatemala, Australia, and Egypt. Parents and students had so much fun learning that they requested Axton host this every year. 95210. Axton Elementary School launched its 95210 initiative with a pep rally full of interactive fun. Students danced with a school eagle, played Are You Smarter Than a Coke Can, and rapped teachers with crepe paper, turning them into carrots. Teachers and staff will help promote the message of 9 hours of sleep, 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, 2 hours of screen time, 1 hour of physical activity, and 0 sugary beverages through the morning walking program, school garden, and classroom lessons. The 95210 zip code is meant to help everyone remember daily recommendations for improved health. And I bet you all have seen those billboards throughout our community. Probably wondered what that 952 stood for. Congratulations to the following students. Carver Elementary student wins a CPR Christmas card contest. Carver Elementary third grader Carly Hunley Winston was recently chosen as the winner of the Henry County Parks and Recreation Annual Christmas Card Contest. Carly's design was chosen as Carver's winner and was also chosen as the overall winner for all of the county schools. Congratulations, Carly on her winning design. And 3 seniors make all-district band. Magna Vista wanted to let us know about their seniors making all-district band this year. Leah Triini, Jesse Spears, and Vanessa Sanchez were chosen to participate in all-district band. This completes my highlight report for this month. And we do have any receipts or expenditures. Ms. Lawson, anything to report on this time? Yeah, we'll have Ms. Lawson do an update there. Other than that, I'll be glad to answer any questions on any other reports. Go ahead, Ms. Lawson.
Looking at expenditures, this is actually through October, the report that was included. Our revised budget is $71,814,764. Again, the adjustment for the year, the $541,164, just as a reminder, was the portion for the 2% raise that we went back into an additional appropriation after the budget was approved. The year-to-date expenditures is $21,354,904.52. And we've used approximately 30.9% of our budget through that time, which is right on track. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer any questions on any of the other items that I submitted under my reports at this time.
Any specific questions on the other items, membership, discipline, fundraisers? If not, we'll move to item 16, matters from the board. Any specific issues that board members would like to address or have addressed at this time? If not, we'll move to item 17. We have in your agenda upcoming meetings, conferences, specifically on January the 13th, which is next Monday. We're meeting with the Board of Supervisors. That's a 5 o'clock meeting. Hopefully everyone has filed their statement of economic interest with Ms. Oldby. The other thing I'll call specifically to your attention, the January 23rd budget development. We move on now to item 18, work sessions. We have a couple of work sessions scheduled for this morning. I guess we will meet in the boardroom upstairs for those, Dr. Thomas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we will travel to the boardroom upstairs to go through those 2 work sessions at this time.
Wanted to point out a couple things as we're looking at our current budget. Wanted to make sure, as I've already notified the board, our enrollment is down slightly based on our September 30, 2013, compared to our projected enrollment and our actual enrollment. We did base our current budget on 7,064.2 students, but the September 30, 2013 actual enrollment reported to the Department of Ed was 7,013. So we are looking at a decrease in enrollment for students. So it's important that you keep that in the back of your mind moving forward. As we look forward to 2015, some of the things that we certainly need to keep in mind, as I've already shared earlier, our vision and mission will be so important for us to keep in the forefront, because a good strategic plan really guides your budgetary process and your resource allocations and so forth. So that will be important to keep in mind as we enter this process. I have worked with senior leadership to establish some budget priorities, and what I'd like to do is I'll go through these, and I'd like feedback from the board if you have, if I can just get a sense that we're on the right track that would help, or if you have any suggestions, I'd like to hear those, because I'm going to be sharing budget priorities with advisory groups and getting feedback as well. So I'd like to get feedback from the board. Oh, wow, I can't see that. Strategy 1, we are, obviously, you'll see that our priorities are aligned to the different strategies that you just heard a lot about in our update. We, of course, want to make sure that we're delivering rigorous and relevant curriculum for all of our students. Thank you. The key word is all, because we want to make sure that all of our students have access to a guaranteed and viable curriculum. The other item that's listed there is ensuring a personalized learning environment that really pulls in that college and career readiness that we've been talking about, and also those 4 C's, the critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. We've also added innovation there, as you know, with our focus on technology. So that needs to be in the forefront. Strategy 2, we want to make sure that we staff our schools with high-quality professionals. We have high-quality professionals serving our students. So we need to maintain competitive salaries and benefits to recruit, not just recruit, but retain a highly qualified workforce. So that's our other priority. The third strategy, we have a priority there under safe and orderly schools to provide a safe and healthy learning, inviting learning environment for our students. That's going to obviously be important to us. Strategy 4, we have a priority under there that says to continue investing in the technological infrastructure and support systems to expand our ability to prepare students to function in a globally competitive environment. As you know, our students aren't just competing for jobs locally, they're competing for jobs worldwide, essentially. Under Strategy 5, our priority is to address major operational and capital needs to ensure an efficient and supportive learning environment for students while protecting our investments. And one of the things that the student advisory is going to be working on this year is helping to define what a 21st century learning environment looks like. So that's going to be their project. So that's going to tie in nicely with what we're talking about here. And under family and community engagement, we want to provide parents in the community with access to necessary tools to actively engage in supporting the education of all students, and that ties into Strategy 6. Any thoughts on these priorities? Do they seem like we're on the right track with these? Hearing no opposition, keep moving forward.
Sounds good.
You may have to look behind me to see some of these, but and I don't think you can see that either. But I wanted to point out to you that the important point on this slide is the enrollment number that we're planning to use, which is 6,926. We're planning our budget now. Look again. Sorry. What happened when I clicked?
Circle the enrollment number.
That's the right number, correct? Okay. So you'll notice that I don't think that helps you see it anymore. It just puts a red circle around. But it's still difficult to see. But the number is 6,926, and as you know, we plan on a conservative number when we're looking at budgetary planning. The nice thing that happens is when we have increased enrollment, we get additional funding, but it's always a challenge to predict. We get various estimates from different sources, and we tend to go with the lower of those estimates just to protect ourselves with planning. As I shared with you, our enrollment's down compared to what we thought it would be this year, so we have to find the funding to address that. And we would much rather be on the other end, where we get additional funding.
The date of our magic number is September 30th.
On this particular slide, again, hard to see, but we're looking at the bottom number includes funds that are considered grants or are paid school nutrition for meals. This number here is higher, which is good news, but we'll talk about what that means on the next slide. What we're looking at with the governor's budget is the one that was recently released, indicates that we're going to have an increase from our approved budget. Remember, that was approved as part of the biennium here, that was $43,908,705 for 2014. There's an increase to $45,648,202 which is an overall increase of $1,739,497. That's the good news. But then the rest of the conversation that we need to talk about is keep in mind that this year we received that additional appropriation of $541,164 to apply that 2%. Remember, we were doing the 2% increase for all staff. So we have to factor that in moving forward, because when you do a salary increase, that's a recurring cost. It's not a one-time cost. So right away, we have to factor that in moving forward. So that brings the overall increase in revenue from the state down to $1.1 million, roughly. That's what we noted here. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is we're still dealing with sequestration, and we're possibly facing further cuts to federal funding. If you all remember, we talked about some of the cuts that we've had to endure, Title I funding and funding for special education and some of those areas that we've had to absorb. So that's
when will we get an idea of when the sequestration is going to be ending, or does it not end?
Dawn, what do you know on that?
They say when they first started talking about sequestration that it was in place for the next 2 years unless the federal government makes some changes or revises their budget. So what I understood in our initial meetings that we had is each year we could get an additional cut or percentage. That the one that we received this year was not the only one. Each year going forward, they'll keep reducing until they meet their budget.
So for how many years did you say?
I understood it was 10.
And then the new budget act they passed for the next 2 years, there's no cuts. They suspended the sequestration for 2 years.
Yeah, we'll hope that it's something we need to continue to monitor.
Right.
Something else that I want to make you aware of is our VRS rates. The rates have increased from 11.66% to 14.5%. Of course, we also have the implementation of the hybrid plan that requires us to pay for the disability portion, because VRS no longer provides disability to employees hired after January 1st, 2014. Of course, employees can opt in to the new hybrid plan, and if they do, then they would be impacted by this as well. So, so that's something that needs to be factored in as we're preparing our budget. Also, our health insurance premiums, we don't know the increase. We should know that by late January, so obviously that's something that will impact our budget process. Of course, we always warn about continued utility costs and fuel costs that we monitor, because those are unstable, as you know. And then, of course, we have our continued challenge of addressing capital needs, which of course is the focus of our joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors on Monday of next week. Some strategies, obviously, that we're working on is to continue to examine cost-saving measures through energy, conservation, and so forth, which we've talked about. We continue to look for ways to attract, recruit, and retain high-quality workforce. That was part of the reason that we did the salary study, to see how we compare to our peers locally when we're looking at retaining and recruiting high-quality staff. And then, of course, we need to continue to look for ways that we can really support our students developing into college and career-ready citizens, because it's very difficult to be innovative when you are dealing with continuous cuts. So the fortunate thing that we've done is we've tried to move several initiatives forward for our students in light of these cuts, but that continues to be more and more of a challenge, as you all know. So really, in summary, all the good news at this point, that as you know, the recovery of federal, state, and local revenue is still very slow moving. We have to continue our implementation of cost-saving measures. We have concerns about health care costs and what the future holds for implementation of the Affordable Care Act. I will tell you that it's having a heavy burden on staff, because I could almost hire a whole other department to work through Affordable Care Act and some of the changes we're having to deal with. And we already, as you know, are running with a skeleton crew in HR and payroll, and we're dealing with lots of additional obligations. The VRS hybrid plan contributes to that concern as well. We've been to several meetings to try to work this out, and there are some costs aligned to that as well. The fuel and utility costs that we've talked about, the capital needs. We have dire capital needs that need to be addressed. And as you know, the big ticket item is Collinsville and John Red, which we've been talking about for a long time. We'll talk about in more detail Monday evening. But we have some major capital needs that we haven't been able to address because we've only been able to use carry forward each year to address some of the minor issues. And we have no funding stream for capital needs, as you know. The other issue is that our local funding level continues to be challenged because of our economic situation, and I'm not anticipating an influx of local funding. So we'll have to, of course, work through that. I wanted to remind you of some feedback and input sessions. We've had to reschedule the teacher advisory because that was yesterday and they weren't in school, so I didn't make them come in for the advisory meeting, so we're going to reschedule that. The roundtable meeting is next week, where I'm going to present a presentation similar to this one. We have advisory meetings with classified staff, a public input meeting on the 23rd that we've talked about already, and the teacher advisory was rescheduled for the 29th, and the student advisory, which I'm looking forward to. And then, of course, we also want to remind everyone we have an email for budget input. And we did receive a few emails last year, and we responded to some of those questions online. One of the things we'll probably do next year is do a budget priority survey for staff next year. We're trying to see how the survey thing works online, but it might be a good way to get even more input from stakeholders. Any questions from the board at this time? Don't anything you need to add to that? Address it all?
Yes, I just want to add one piece to the VRS hybrid plan. We are required as a school district under the new hybrid plan, we have to pay a short-term disability for employees for a certain amount of time. So that adds to the cost of the hybrid plan also, in addition to providing this long-term disability insurance.
That's important to know because that's a potential increased cost. And how do you plan for that? Because you don't know who's going to be on short-term disability. So,
Is it the intent when we present a final budget to the governing board to simply ask for level funding?
We're not there yet, but we'll get there at some point within the next month where, as we've done before, I'll be meeting with board members to look at where we are and what my recommendations are. I'm also scheduling meetings with Tim Hall and his staff to keep them informed on the challenges that we're facing and some of the issues. But I'm not ready yet to determine what we'll be asking for. You know, last year we asked for a little more than level funding. And of course, we didn't get that. So my hope is that earlier engaging the county staff early on will at least get the message out that we have dire needs that we need to address, and whether that translates to increased funding, I don't know at this point yet.
I think, first, if we continue to accept, and of course we have no choice but to accept level funding, but sometimes it seems like that we send a message, we're very grateful for just having level funding, so maybe we ought to. I know last year the city got a big increase with all of the budget problems that they're having. They asked for a big increase and got a significant part of it. So, you know, I don't know how the other board members feel, but I think sometimes we need to, if we're going to address some of the concerns that have been identified, level funding, I'm not going to allow us to do it.
And my strategy this year has been to try to engage the county administrator much earlier. For the last several years, well, before before I can't totally speak for prior to my arrival here, but it appears that the budget issues were shared pretty much when the budget recommendation was made by the superintendent, or close to that. So I'm trying to engage in those conversations much earlier. Don't know what impact that will have, but at least I feel better about knowing that we're increasing that two-way communication early on, so that we all have a good understanding of the budget issues that we're facing with the school division, rather than saying right before a board meeting, here's what I need. I'm being facetious. It was never that late in the process, but it's always good to talk about it much earlier.
I think that we should be realistic up front, and if we continue to give the idea that we're gonna make do and we're okay, we need to make a united stand of what we really need, and we need to pursue that and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, you had mentioned in our orientation, we're somewhat in the catch-22 situation, that we can show a lot of excellent achievement with what we have been awarded, and so the argument could certainly be made, well, you're doing a great job with what you have, but I don't think that's an acceptable argument, and I think the same standards that allow us to achieve greatly with what we've been allowed should also encourage trust that what we're asking for are legitimate needs and would only allow us to excel more. And I think that's the message we have to get across, because it's easy to see it the other way and say, oh, you're doing great with what you show all this achievement with what you've done, and therefore why do you need more?
And the reason we achieve is because we're fortunate to have staff that go beyond the extra mile to help students achieve.
They were intense.
I think Dr. Stanley's comments are right on the line. I've sat in those meetings where we met with the board supervisors now for 5 or 6 years. And we present what's going on and how well we're doing. And I've never heard one of them say, you're really doing a great job. Keep it up. It'd be nice to hear that. I just mentioned a few minutes ago, sometimes our school division is recognized as an outstanding division more from people around the state than it is from people here who should be very supportive and proud of what Hidden County Public Schools are doing. The other question I had, one of the points up there was attract and retain high quality personnel. I know from reading in the papers and seeing what's happening in other divisions, there are situations in some divisions where teachers have been teaching as long as 5 years in the system are making the same thing as a first-year teacher because of the lack of raises over a period of time. Are we caught up in that type of situation here?
We do have, and really it's compounding that happens if you don't do step increases, then you do end up with a grouping at the beginning of the scale, and not having the scale in front of me, I believe it's teachers 0 to 3 that are making the same, and that's what I mean by compounding. You actually have teachers at the beginning of the scale first few years that are making the same salary, and that happens as a direct result of not adjusting the steps. And we haven't adjusted the steps. We didn't adjust the steps, as you know, last year or I believe the year prior. So, and that's a part of those vast recommendations from that salary study we're going to have to look at. We may decide that maybe we can't do a raise for everybody, but maybe we can try to fix the scale. But keep in mind, when you do that, that only impacts teachers. So you've got support staff who are not going to see an increase. Only the teachers would. So those are all things that we need to look at. So when I talk to you about recommendations, we need to look at what are our priorities. Maybe we fix the teacher scale first, and then we work on the support staff salaries or those kinds of things. So we can prioritize. But we do have some of what you're talking about, not 5 years, but 0 to 3 is what I believe is the same salary, if I'm remembering correctly.
I attended 2 events this summer. But the county conducted. And in both cases, the effort of Patrick Henry Community College and NCI was really praised in the eyes of their contributions to the development of the workforce, and I heard no mention of Henry County students. And I had to contain myself.
How long ago was that?
This past summer.
This past summer.
Sure.
I've, hopefully off the record, Paul Collins. I will tell you that, yeah, I've raised the same concern because it doesn't start in post-secondary, it starts before that. So I've raised the same concern because I was at an event where nothing was mentioned about K-12. And what people need to realize is we have a very strong partnership, as you know, with Patrick Henry and NCI, and they don't just show up at Patrick Henry doing all these great things. They have to be well prepared for that. So you're right, and I would appreciate any time you could get that message across to the public, that would help.
Other comments or concerns or questions? That will conclude the informational session on budget.
Thank you. The other item that I have for you was a follow-up, I believe, a question that, you remember we had our retreat, and one of the items that the board wanted to talk about was the achievement gap, and we wanted to look at some data related to the achievement gap or data in Henry County. I've asked Mr. House to pull some data together for you, and I'm going to just pass it to him to let him kind of give you an update on where we are.
Okay, the first thing, just to describe what you have, I've given each one of you a handout, and just to briefly tell you what you have is, I think I shared with you before, this is, and I know you keep hearing a lot about math, but we're trying to align everything with what we're doing and not have 10,000 things, but being consistent in the data sources that we use. I've given you another copy of the MAP normative data chart, and the front just describes what the process they got to do in terms of making their assessment. Then on the back, it gives you a chart that will basically tell you at the beginning what the national norm is for the fall assessment, which would be the same as the beginning year. The mid-year would be the winter assessment, and the end of year would be our spring assessment. And it's for students in reading and mathematics, and it's in grades K through 11. And basically, we can look at that chart and say that, a kindergartner at the beginning, entering kindergarten, when we assessed them in August, they should have, if they're at the national norm, they would have scored a 142.5, which is a rich score, which is ready for instruction today. Okay, so that, just want to give you that, I'm going to use in that chart. And then the yellow sheet you have indicates the results from the fall and winter assessment for those three groups there, for our white students, our black students, and our Hispanic students in grades K through 7. And then on the back, I've given you a chart that describes our students in terms of advanced studies, diplomas earned. We've broken it down into categories of black males, black females, white males, Hispanic females, and Hispanic males. And then we've also done the same breakdown for our students enrolled in at least one dual enrollment course. And then the last chart talks about our on-time graduation rate. Okay. And then the blue sheet is a 3-year summary of our SOL scores at the elementary, middle, and high school level in both math, writing, and in reading. Okay. So I'll be referring to those at different times during our presentation. One of the things that, before I go, is that we like to look at multiple sources. We complain about the state using only the SOL test and only this, that. So we like to look at multiple data sources when we're looking at student achievement, just to triangulate and make sure we're on target with that. I'm going to start out with giving you some background information that we kind of pulled together on national trends in terms of achievement and different subgroups and so forth. Part of that is when you look at it, and it's hard to see, that nationally, when you look at the national assessment, you'll see that a lot of times you'll see that African American and Hispanic students are scoring significantly lower on standardized tests than the average, than white and Asian and our Asian students. Okay. That gap just doesn't start when kids get at a certain grade. One thing we look at, and one reason we focused on MAP, and I'll refer to you to the yellow sheet. If you look at the kindergarten, white, black, and Hispanic, none of those children, when they came in this fall in reading, were at a 142.5. So they all arrived at us with various different degrees of readiness. So, what that does, it lets us know where we've got to get them to. So it's good information to have in terms of trying to make sure, because one of the things we want to focus on, and we've done with our data, is that if we get on this early, the gap doesn't occur. The longer you let it go, the wider the gap can get. There's no simple explanation for the gap. It's not. There are multiple, as you can see, there are a variety of school and community and home factors that underlie or contribute to this achievement gap. And the thing that we're trying to focus on is that you don't just ignore it as the status quo. You have to address it. One of the things that we've looked at in our research, that it has nothing to do with the innate ability or genetic factors of the achievement gap. It's not that you can't learn because you're this group or that group. We have to focus. Our focus is on teaching every child, and the resources that it may take, or the time that it may take for me to teach student A, I may have to increase that for student B. But our job is to find what that resource is, put it in place. And it's not an irreversible reality. In other words, you're not, because you're here, you stay here. And we see that. You're going to see that when we look at our data. We move children. And again, we try to stay away from again, you're in this group, so you're only allowed to achieve this one. So we do know for a fact that the achievement gap shrunk during the 70s and the 80s. And the reason that, when you look at that, the reason that it shrunk is because you had an emphasis on programs like Head Start and Title I, and an emphasis on eliminating poverty. So we did see the gap shrink. Now, over the past 25, 30 years, every group that you look at, whether it be black, white, or Hispanic, we've improved in terms of student achievement over those years. The one thing that we have to focus on, and that again, when you look at the national trends, is that, and we've said this before, if I'm a second grade student and I arrive at your second grade class on the first day of school, and I'm reading on the first grade level, and you're a great teacher, and when I leave your class in the second grade, I made a year's growth, a year's progress. Now, that's to be celebrated, but we can't be satisfied with that, because here's the reality of it, is that I'm going into third grade and I'm still a year behind. I'm still a year behind. So, we have to look at improving performance beyond that normal, just I made my year's progress. Because when we look at research, to tell you that when these groups are the students that are going behind, they have to improve at a fast rate, and you have to be very careful that with instruction is that, well, I don't want to overwhelm this person, this child. That's when we need to push more. Because if you simply settle for, or we settle for, well, they're not ready for this or that, then they're always going to be behind. So we have to constantly push the envelope to challenge ourselves to get our students to the level that they should be at. When you look at racial, ethnic differences in family income, parent education, that explains, in the research to tell us that about 1/3 of what occurs in the achievement gap. But there again, the focus is on getting to that point that all students are experiencing success. National Assessment for Educational Proficiency. This is an assessment that is given nationwide for different grade levels. Our school, Dr. Cotton gets a letter every year, and they randomly select schools and grades at our school. Sometimes it's an elementary school, sometimes it's a middle school, sometimes it's high school, and we will administer tests to so many of those students in our school as well as other schools across the country in terms of trying to establish those national norms. Now, when we were looking at this, and this is what we really call an achievement gap. And you're not going to, when the data that you look in our schools, you're not going to see this. But I wanted to put this up here because that's the reality of what occurs in some places. And to avoid us ever getting to that point, we need to be proactive. Okay? Because you will see in the research and some of the NAEP assessments that black students at age 17 were scoring at the level of white students at age 13. And that's in reading. And that is an achievement gap. Now, achievement gap can be defined in a lot of different ways. If you have this particular group achieving at 85% and this one at 82%, you have a gap, which is a difference in the scores. But this is what, I think when we're talking about achievement gap, this is what researchers are talking about, these huge gaps in instruction among different groups of students. Another thing that NAEP looked at is they found that they had some places where black students scored at age 13 were scoring at the level of white students at age 9. Yeah, that's a 4-year gap. And again, that is what, when I look at you say achievement gap, that's an achievement gap. And again, like I said, I stress that you won't see that in our data. But again, we have to be vigilant so that we don't get to that. Other national findings that you'll see is that, we've all been dealing with the standards-based reform, SOLs, the Common Core, and those things. All those things have great potential in terms of enhancing the equity. One of the things I would tell you, and I think is that with the NCLB, No Child Left Behind, I think we saw groups of students there's been a focus put on different groups of students that did not exist prior to that. And so I think you get, as one of the big things that came out of that, is that we are focusing on teaching every child. Now, the reality is that we have to have high standards and challenging academic curriculum for all students, regardless of what group it is, not just for the elite, but for all students. Now, whether this potential is realized, again, depends on, exactly some of the things that you all talked about earlier in the budget development. We continue to do well, and you get stretched thinner and thinner and thinner. But the reality is that in order to make that, to have that potential be realized, it depends on the resources and the support that we receive. Because the easy part is to set the standards, whether it be National Core, the SOLs. That's the easy part. The test development is relatively easy. But the key, those things have to be translated into the standards and real change in the curriculum with what we're doing now in revising our curriculum to make it more responsive to what our students are facing when they hit the real world in terms of being able to problem solve, to be able to complete projects, to work collaboratively, to think creatively. Those are all things that have to translate into our curriculum as well as our instructional program and into the learning opportunities that we provide for our students. Our ACE Academy, the advanced manufacturing, all of those things are the opportunities. The increase that we have in terms of our online learning and understanding that learning doesn't just take place now inside the four walls of the school. Learning takes place everywhere. And again, you can't stress enough that our policymakers have to understand that it's not enough just to have high standards, but we have to have the resources in order to make those things come to reality. Well, when we look at our data in Henry County, we want to look specifically at areas of progress. If you look on the yellow sheet, you're going to see that you will see, for the math and the reading, that we will show growth in every area with the exception of in all of these areas, you're going to see growth from the fall assessment to the winter assessment. And again, the fall assessment's on the left, the winter assessment's on the right. We've seen growth in every one of these categories. And look more specifically, if you look at the K2 area, we will see double-digit growth in every group except for second grade math with our Hispanic students, and that was only about 7.4. But double-digit growth. Now, part of that is that you're dealing with younger children, and there's more room for growth. As you move up through that, the growth is smaller, but it's because our kids, their knowledge base increases and the growth slows down. But as those early years, you see tremendous growth. If you look at on the back of the yellow sheet, look at our trend for our students at AP and dual enrollment courses. We're trending in the right way. And if you look at 2000, for example, our black females in 2011, 48.4% enrolled in at least one dual enrollment course, up to 50% in 2012, 56% in 2013.
Can I interrupt? Just ask a question.
Sure.
This came up in my mind anyway at one of the previous reviews of MAP, and that is looking at beginning of the year to later assessment and comparing the growth. Does MAP provide, growth is expected, obviously. Is there a summary of how that growth compares to the expected growth?
SOL? In terms of the SOL?
Well, in the MAP. In other words, we have on the MAP the norms that there's, for any grade level, an expected amount of growth for the norms, and we show growth, but sometimes it's a little less growth than the norm, sometimes a little more. Is there a quick summation of that is provided through MAP? Say, yes, you're growing, but actually you didn't grow as much as we would have expected.
Yes, we do have that. I'll provide that for you.
Well, I don't even know that we necessarily need it. It seems like it'd be an important number.
Yes.
Because growth alone, if it's not growth that's up to what should be expected or national standards.
Right. And that's why the national norm, because you're going to see them. Well, for example, if you look at our kindergarten students, the 139.7, the expected growth was for the beginning was 142.5. Okay. Now, when you look at them across, again, that's the white students. You look at the white, it's 152.2, and the winter assessment, it should be 150.51. Is that
right? That's what I'm getting at.
And the teachers get that information too. They get the expected growth for each of their students, and our message has been we expect all students to grow, but they also get a percentage of their students who meet the expected.
And it's also an assessment that when they take it, if you score above it, it resets what your expected growth is not going to be the same as this number. Okay, it's adaptive. In other words, when you take it, if I take this test and I scored 145, then it's going to set my score higher than the 151. It sets a goal for me.
As opposed to saying you're doing so well, you can now rest on your laurels.
Right. So that's an important point because I come to you and I'm off the charts. I need to be challenged. And we had a specific incident where we had a student in grade 6 that blew the top off was, off the map. So we knew that 6th grade teacher knows I've got to do something different with this child because they're far exceeding where they are. So that was the beauty of math, is that it is adaptive and it looks at where you are as opposed to everybody having the same. Thank you. We also see an upward trend for us in on-time graduation. When we look at the different groups, we did have a drop like there with our black students in 2012, but we're back up to 93.6 for 2013. So we are trending in the right way in terms of on-time graduation. But again, I can't say enough. We just have to remain vigilant in terms of what we're doing. Now, areas of challenge, they're there. We know they're there. As we look at our kindergarten students, none of them came in at the level. The challenge is we got to get them there. But again, we're armed with information, so we know what we need to do. It's better than just going into it blind and not having that information to drive our instruction. And it also, and I think a lot of you've heard this, what gets measured gets done. And so we're assessing not one time a year. We're doing it periodically so that we can make adjustments as we go, instead of waiting to the end and all of a sudden we got these test results and they're not good. Well, it should, with what this program is, shouldn't be a surprise to us. We should have a good gauge as to what that is. The challenge area that we've got to look at is our black, white, and Hispanic males earning advanced studies diplomas. If you look at that trend, we need to work. We need to do a better job with that. And and again, it's males across the board. It's not one. It's males across the board. Our females are outperforming our they're just outperforming us. And we got to work on it. Okay, our overall student performance in math, based on, if we look at our math assessments, it tells us, we're looking at, we still have some challenges in mathematics across the board. Across the board. Hence, we participated in the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics program. We're working with gearing our professional development program toward improving our math results as well. And you look at a blue sheet, look at our SOL performance. Part of this you have to look at too. We try to look at 3 years of data in terms of really seeing the trends, because 1 year can be an anomaly. But one thing we have to keep in mind is that we really don't have 3 consecutive years of consistent data. Here it's 3 years of data, but we've got interspersed in there new assessments. If you look at the elementary math on the blue sheet here, if you look across 2011, look across the board, 90% in every category. 90% in every category. The new assessments went into effect in 2012, and you see a significant drop. And there is to be expected some drop when you have a new assessment. We didn't expect quite that significant drop. And we've not rebounded in math as well or as quickly as we did when they revised the social studies standards and the social studies assessment. So that's an area that's of concern to us and that we're working very hard on. But again, I wanted to point out to you that when those new assessments are implemented, you're going to see those drops. If you look in the writing and reading areas, the drop occurred in 2013 because that was the year of the new assessment. So we continue to compile that data, and hopefully we get those 3 years of consistent on the same assessment. Then we can be more inclusive. strategies. There are a lot of good strategies out there and a lot of things that you're going to see here that we've tied to our strategic plan in terms of, and the first one is, I think it's probably the single one that we want to invest more in, and that is strengthening our parent community support for learning. There's a tendency as our children get older, we become less and less involved. And, we've got to kind of rekindle that in working with our parents and providing the supports. But that's one of the things that we're going to see, because if you look at that, if you look at the other strategies and things that are going to come up out here, the majority of the ones you're going to see come after this depend largely on us being successful with that. For example, one of the things we know we need to do is we need to increase our participation of minority students in those academically challenging courses. Now, it's one thing for me to go to you and say, you need to be in this AP course, and students can always take the easy route when they can. We need the support from home to say, yeah, you do need to be in that class. But we also have to take it upon ourselves to do a better job of minding and finding these students who need to be in it. We have to get our teachers to recognize, hey, this student needs to be in these AP courses and needs to be challenged. We're using our PSAT data to identify students earlier in the middle school that need to be in these AP courses. But again, it's key, as you can see, when we looked at the AP and dual enrollment courses, we're increasing it. We just need to make sure we stay vigilant with it. Investing in teacher professional development. I can't think of one thing that we, as a division, that we've done better than in terms of investing in teacher professional development. We're very fortunate to have our grant from the Harvest Foundation that allows us to focus on it. A lot of school divisions don't have that, and our teachers get exposed to a lot of different professional development activities and opportunities. Example, our math teachers today are participating in a math workshop with nationally recognized math experts. So the opportunities are there, and again, that's an investment. And we do that with, we're looking at, in terms of our next bullet, recruiting and retaining our highly qualified teachers. And that's an emphasis for us in terms of not only recruiting and retaining minority teachers, but also making sure we maintain high quality teachers in general. That's our goal, to have the best teacher possible in our classrooms for our students. And so we have to, again, remain vigilant with that aspect as well. Maintaining high expectations for teachers and students. There's a lot of research out there that indicates this is a very critical component, that we have high expectations for our teachers, hence we have recruiting and retaining our highly qualified teachers here. But one of the things we also have to stress is that in our classrooms, our teachers have to have high expectations for our students. Okay. And that's critical. Again, that's another critical component. Addressing the reality of student mobility. And I tell you what, again, I know I keep referring to it a lot, but MAP has really helped us out in a lot of areas, because that's a critical component. Our students are more mobile today than they've ever been. You see more multi-family homes, more people moving in because of economic conditions or whatever, and so students move. And they may, even within our county, we see a great deal of movement from one school to another. The beauty of what we've been able to do with our MAP assessments is that if that child transfers within our county, that information is portable. So the teacher that gets the kid from Sandville that goes to Axton is armed with information when that child walks in the door as to where they're at. And I can tell you on a number of situations this year, we've gotten students that have come to us from outside of our division that have, various different reasons. We've had to take a look and say, okay, what's the best placement for this child? Well, we're able to go in, administer a MAP assessment and say, this is where this child needs to be and this is where they're functioning. And so the teacher knows exactly right, because the chronological age or may not always be accurate, but it gives us the opportunity to best serve that child. And especially within our own county, when we have students moving in and around, again, that information is portable that we have, and we're armed with it and hopefully provide better instruction, keeping that student on track. and lessen that impact of constant movement. Investing in extended learning time. I think one of the things that you all talked about in the budget discussion is having those resources. Our schools have, right now we're operating on a limited budget in terms of our after-school programs and our summer programs. We would love to have more resources to provide those programs on a longer basis. Identifying our principals right now do a very good job of identifying students that are in need of assistance. And you have some schools that will start their after-school programs in September. Some start in October. They gauge that based on what their needs are with their students. But again, that's an area where you could always use additional resources. Providing access to outside learning opportunities. Again, our board is doing that, with government school. We're doing that with our ATE program, with our dual enrollment, our ACE program at Patch Henry. And Dr. Cotton touched on a little bit in his report. One of the things that I know he's been working on for over a year is coordinating those community services and getting a bigger bang for our buck. If you'd like to add any more.
Yeah, that's what I shared earlier about those community organizations, trying to get us all working toward the same goal. And that's helpful because streamlining means that we'll better serve more students.
Well, one example of that is PH has the MAC After 3. They've written several 21st century grants, and they are providing the funding for tutoring at our high schools. And they also did some middle schools a couple of years ago with grants through Patch Henry Community College and Boys and Girls Club. So that group is trying to coordinate all of those services, and especially in terms of programs that are available to students in the summer, because we're going to see a lot of loss of learning with that summer downtime in terms of what we provide, the opportunities that we provide for our students during the summer to bridge that gap between that summer break and the start of school in the fall. So that's important to keep that in mind as well. And continuing, one of the things nationally that you'll see is high quality preschool programs. We started out, I think, 10 years ago, we had only 4 preschool programs. We have 18 preschool programs now, which represents a little over 50% of the incoming kindergarten class is already sitting in our preschool program. Our challenge is, one of the things that I guess, we just don't have enough hands on deck. But I really want to do an analysis of the students that we have in our preschool program, their performance against students who were not in our preschool program. And again, if, hopefully, highlight the successes of our program, which is what we've done in the past analysis that we've done. We've seen a significant impact with our preschool program. But again, being able to stress the emphasis of getting those 4-year-olds in, it gives us a year's head start in terms of getting those students up to par in terms of their learning opportunity. And it should also be noted that our preschool program focuses on getting the most needy children into those programs in terms of their enrollment. It's not a first come, first serve. It's a matrix that you go through. The more needs that a child has, the better the chances of getting into the program. Could we use more preschool programs? Again, it goes back to the resources. We'd love to have all 4-year-olds, but again, we'd have to have a place to put them, and that involves dollars and capital expenditures and so forth. But the importance of preschool programs cannot be underestimated in terms of student achievement. So we've tried to give you a snapshot of what's taking place. And again, like I said, we're seeing growth, but the key for us is just to we have to stay on top of what's going on and stay abreast of the trend and providing the resources that are necessary to see all of our students succeed. Questions?
I think the presentation certainly points out where we have some strengths and areas we need to work on. Appreciate you taking the time to put this together. I think we probably hit on the major issue here is that So now that we can see on paper where the gaps exist, to the extent to which they exist, now we want to keep working.
And it'll have to be a collaborative effort. Not one entity is going to solve or close those gaps. We're all going to have to do part.
Any other issues before we adjourn to the closed session? Okay, if not, then at this time I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session in accordance with section 2.2-3711, Square A, Plan 1, appointments and separation of personnel. Same section, Plan A, Plan 2, Code of Virginia Student Matters, and the same section, Plan A, Plan 7, Code of Virginia Legal Matters.
So moved.
Okay, those in favor of this motion signify by raising your right hand. This time I'll entertain a motion to return to regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor of stating motion signify by raising your right hand. Ms. Overby, certification of the closed session.
Whereas the School Board of Henry County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712.d of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the School Board of Henry County hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered. Mr. Alker?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. DeVault?
Yes.
Ms. Maddox?
Yes.
Dr. Stambaugh? And Mr. Zaire?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, we have several motions coming out of the closed session. I'll start with the motion regarding the personnel reports. Ms. Maddox.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that the personnel report be approved as presented.
Is there a second to that motion?
There was an addendum too, is that correct?
No addendum today.
No addendum? Okay.
I believe there was.
There was?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And also the addendum as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, those in favor of this stated motion signify by raising your right hand. We have a motion from Mr. Zaire.
Mr. Chairman, I move in student case number 6EXP-14 that the student be expelled from the Henry County Schools for 365 days with no access to alternative services.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second the motion.
Those in favor of this stated motion signify by raising your right hand. Mr. Zaire, I believe you have another.
Mr. Chairman, I move in student case number 5EXP-14 that the student be expelled from the school for 365 days with no access to alternative services.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Those in favor of this stated motion signify by raising your right hand. Mr. Alker, you have a motion from closed session.
I move in student case number 7NENR-14 that the student not be allowed to enroll at Magna Vista High School.
Second.
Did you second the motion? Motion's been made and seconded. Those in favor of this motion signify by raising your right hand. I believe that completes our business for this day. Is there a motion at this time for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that our meeting on this day be adjourned at this time. Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Thank you.